under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the roll. Riley?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Here.
Wilder?
Here.
Nelson?
Present.
Bundy?
Present.
Benaz?
Here.
And Costick. Everyone is here. The next item is approval of the agenda. I have a motion.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported that the agenda be approved. One thing, I think Mrs. Pelschke's here to talk about action item 1, correct? Or to see what we do on that. So, and then Mr. and Mrs. Albright are here to talk about their drainage problem under discussion items. And we have Mr. Joe Alcesser here, building a home, I guess, on Park Lane near Bridge, and wants to talk about a drainage issue. So my only thought is I think the Albrights and Ms. Pelschke are willing to wait till their item comes up on the agenda, and rather than have Mr. Alcesser wait till the end, might entertain the idea that after we get through the first couple of items, we might let you speak, although I don't hold everybody else up. So maybe we'll try to deal with the other items, and before we get into the lengthier items, so maybe about before we get into our road discussions, which could take some time, I'll call on you. So it'd be about, if you have a copy of the agenda, be about item number, action item after we deal with number 1. So we won't make you sit here all night. Is that agreeable with the board? All in favor of the agenda, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next is approval of our minutes of our May 15th meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2014 meeting.
Actually, it's April 15th.
You're right, it should be April.
Oh, that was a quick...
Who caught that one?
I got it circled, and I still say it.
Well, that's very good. We were going along with this. All right, any comments, suggestions, changes? If not, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. You have bills, which are listed on pages 11 through 16. And entertain a motion to approve the bills.
I move that we approve the bills, vouchers 13,258 to 13,266.
Second.
Moved and supported that the vouchers be approved as distributed. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll receive the statement of revenues and expenditures, and of course we're just into the first month of our operating year, so those are really new. We have the item 8 is approval of the treasurer's report. Everybody's had a chance to look at that? Entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the treasurer's report for April of 2014.
Second.
Any questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And before we leave this part of the agenda, I want to just make a brief report. Last night, our recording secretary and interim director, Lorinda Beneteau, and I, along with trustees Benaz and Bundy, attended a workshop held by the city or the township clerk right in this room. All the chairs of all the commissions and the recording secretaries were here. And we basically talked about proper procedures for preparing agendas and minutes. And of course, we record our minutes, not verbatim, but we do a pretty good job through Lorinda's efforts to record the minutes. Sometimes I've accused Lorinda of being too lengthy with some of her descriptions, maybe a little briefer. But it's not like the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals where when they have a public hearing, they record things almost verbatim. But one thought I had is, since what we just went through, approval of the agenda, minutes, vouchers, statement of revenues and expenditures. Until we get to the end of the year, some of that, particularly the budget, the financial reports, is not as significant as right now. So we go through that, and we have like 5 motions to get to this point. So I want to ask the Commission, how would you feel about, if you're familiar with the consent agenda for those items? That's what the Township Board does. Several other commissions may do that, but I know in other communities they do. So the way that works is you could have one motion to approve the consent agenda. If somebody had a question on an item, they could raise it and get an answer, or if they wished it pulled off for discussion, it could be pulled off and put to the discussion item on the agenda. Let's save us a lot of these motions, and the thing that would really help is, we've cut back staff. I mean, our DPS staff has been cut in half in the last 8 or 9 years, and Lorinda's trying to do multiple things right now in addition to taking care of our minutes. So I would entertain a motion to just try out the consent agenda on our next meeting agenda and see if it's comfortable for everybody.
Second. Well, nobody made a motion yet. I'm not really in favor of that kind of situation because it's 5 minutes after 7. It's taken us 5 minutes to get through 8 items. And the transcription of that can be motion by X, approved by Y, boom. So in 5 minutes, we've done it all. But sometimes there's little things that pop up in this information. And I think it's probably a better idea to review that stuff, as we always have, than come up with a streamlined approach. There might be some things specifically that the clerk's office might not be aware of that probably are not the best policies. And that's to be dealt with in other situations, not here. But I'm not in favor of that because it takes us 5 minutes to do that. And motion approved, motion approved, motion approved.
Well, that's
Except the treasurer's report.
Very seldom.
Well, the only problem you have is if there's a typo, so it's April 15th instead of May 15th.
You can make corrections and ask questions. Okay, I heard you.
Yeah,
how about anybody else's comments? Anybody in favor of doing it? Leave it the way it is?
How's work for the office for me?
Well, the township is different. John makes a good point, I think, that it is 5 minutes and we've gone through 8 items.
All right, did we have a motion then, or not? If we didn't, we'll just drop it. If there's no interest...
There wasn't a motion.
All right. Just thought it'd be a good idea, and we'll keep it in the back of our heads in case we think of it again. How's that? All right? Okay, under the manager's reports, I think we'll start. So we were going to go with an update from Lorinda on the Park Lane, Lakewood, Balmoral, and Martin Lane water main improvements. Lorinda?
Okay, the water main installation on Martin Lane has been completed, and they're working on the restoration as weather allows. They moved over to Lakewood and Balmoral, and they held a pre-construction meeting out there on Monday? On Monday. And they'll be removing and replacing a piece of water main on Lakewood and Balmoral because there's a section of water main there when the water main breaks occur, they shut the entire Jewel colony down. So what they plan on doing with the replacement is to install some new valves so that when there is a water main break, and hopefully there won't be in the future, but if there is, they only have to turn off a few homes instead of the entire subdivision. Once that's completed, they'll move over to Park Lane, and there they will do the water main extension from Horse Mill to just north of Wood Drive. That way they'll eliminate a dead end, providing a better quality of drinking water there, and they'll also have a loop in the system and better firefighting capabilities.
Okay. Any questions? So have you talked to the engineers about how the contractor's doing? He's actually, now that we're through winter, and is he doing a pretty good job? John?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know there was some...
They had a little rain delay this week, but they're on schedule to start tomorrow morning.
And they've cleaned Martin Lane up pretty well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. We'll move on to update on the wastewater treatment plant. And I know Mr. Lardner's here with Joe O'Keefe. I'll turn it over to you, and you can. This involves our wastewater treatment plant operations. The plant is 60, 70 years old. We're making some repairs in the elevator, shaft, and lighting. So, Joe, you want to talk about the elevators?
Okay, well, I'm going to have Mike discuss most of what's really going on in the elevator since he's got the experience in it. But as I reminded you at last meeting, it was that day that we discovered the pits in the rails, the guide rails, and the need that they were going to probably have to be replaced. We brought in the state inspector that Friday. He issued a correction notice to replace the rails due to the corrosion, severe corrosion, especially on the lower levels. It was his recommendation also, and they agreed with this recommendation, as did one of their competitors, that if you're replacing the rails, it's not worth the rails themselves, the top little sections of rails, that isn't where the money is all in the labor. And it just would make more sense. It's a tongue and groove fit, and everybody agreed, replace them all. Don't just go in there and replace part of it. Looks like he's got some samples. He's going to show you what they plan to do, and he may have something there to show you what most of you saw the correction for yourselves.
Well, that's a sample.
Mr. Lardner?
Yes.
I'm going to let you introduce you, but you got to speak into the mic when you do speak.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Joe, you want to?
Yeah.
This is Mike Lardner. He's president of Lardner Elevator. They were the low bidder for the contract to rehabilitate the elevator.
And you're located in Detroit?
Yes, we're located in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, now you can go ahead.
Okay, so what I brought here is a sample of an elevator guide rail. Obviously, this is a used guide rail, okay? The top of it is just regular paint, and this T-part gets fastened to the rail brackets, and the elevator rides on this machined part here. There's two types of guides that connect the elevator car to the guide rail. One has rollers, and one is just a slide guide with a plastic insert. The guide rails at the wastewater treatment plant, we have quite a bit of experience in wastewater treatment plants. Sewage booster stations is what I'm referring to, because they boost sewage up to a different main and then it flows downhill to the next. Anyway, and what happens is there's, as a product of the sewage, there's hydrogen sulfide in the gas that the sewage gases out. And this hydrogen sulfide gas, that's a rotten egg smell you smell. It's very corrosive. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's so highly corrosive, it really ate away the guide rails to the point where there's no structure left. There was just standing corroded metal, not rusted, but corroded metal. And when we went to clean them up, then you could see that they were falling apart, and you could actually remove pieces of them. And that presents a hazard because the safety mechanism on the elevator overspeeds the safety mechanism, grabs this portion of the guide rail. And in the case at the wastewater treatment plant here, if the safety mechanism had to grab that, it would just crumble away, and the elevator would continue to fall. So this was necessary to replace the guide rails. It really wasn't predictable because without attempting to start cleaning them, they looked like they had their shape with some surface rust on them, and it really, nobody would have known beforehand until you started to clean them, with some mechanical device like a grinder or something like that. And that's when it was discovered. So what we're recommending is to replace the guide rails. This is what we call an 8-pound guide rail. It weighs 8 pounds per foot. And we also recommend putting an epoxy coating on the guide rails. So that's what we did this afternoon to show you what this is. This is a 2-part epoxy coating called Anchor 2. It's made by Pittsburgh plate glass. And what we would do is we would coat all surfaces of the guide rail except for the face. Okay? And in the specification, they requested roller guides. And we would recommend that we forego roller guides on the elevator and use slide guides. And the reason being is we want to lubricate the face of this guide rail with a lubricant, a paraffin-based, wax-based lubricant that would stick to the guide rail, and the roller or the slide guide would slide up and down on the rail. If you put roller guides on that, then you have to have a naked rail, and the hydrogen sulfide would corrode away the naked rail. Okay? If you put the grease or some type of lubricant on the naked rail and you use roller guides, the rollers would spin off the lubricant, and it would make a mess in the elevator shaft. Okay? And then you would have a naked rail really quick anyway. So we suggest using slide guides. We suggest putting this coating on the guide rail, which is quite a process. It's going to take us a couple of days in our facility to do this because we have to strip the rail, prep it, and then mix a two-part epoxy, which has a short pot life, like 2 or 3 hours, and then coat the guide rails, and then we'll bring them down to the job site, we'll install them, and then we'll go back and we'll recoat anything that was left bare as a result of the installation. Okay, so I can show you, if you care to, I brought a sample of the roller guide and the slide guide to show you the difference. Care to see that?
Sure.
This is what we call, this is a swivel slide guide. It swivels on the car. And then I'm going to just take it apart for this purposes of demonstration. But it has a plastic insert, a UHMW, ultra high molecular weight plastic insert that slides up and down on the rail, like so. And then we'll add this, it's called Nylube lubricant. It's made in Michigan, but it's been in use throughout the world for 50 or 60 years. And we'll put that on the surface here, and it will stick pretty well. It does a good job. Okay? And then this portion of this assembly gets bolted to the elevator car frame. Okay, at the top and bottom on both sides of the elevator car, and on the elevator counterweights. There's a counterweight mechanism that it's in the same situation as the elevator car. This is a what we call an Alsco roller guide assembly, and it rides on the guide rails like that. Okay, but as you can see, if you have to have dry guide rails. There will be no lubrication and no protection because obviously the rollers will spit off anything that you put on there to protect it from the corrosion.
It's like a bicycle tire going through water.
There you go. Thank you very much. So we feel that in this case, the most practical thing to do is replace the guide rails, coat them thoroughly with this two-part epoxy coating, and use the slide guide instead of the specified roller guides. Okay? And it'll be a lot less maintenance in the long run, and they'll last a lot longer. You won't be dealing with this, well, none of us will be dealing with this again. Okay?
Well, the current plant was built how many years ago?
1966.
66? So it's only 40-some years old.
Yeah, these guide rails were shot for a good 15 years. We're fortunate that they weren't needed to stop the elevator car.
Is there any negative to using the system as opposed to the rollers?
Yeah. the negative is if you use the rollers,
No, other way around. Is there any negative using the slide guide instead of the rollers?
Not in my opinion. This elevator, the roller guides are usually used in high-speed elevators in well-kept locations like office buildings and stuff like that. When you're going 200, 300 feet a minute, okay, this elevator only travels, I believe it's 100 or 120 feet a minute. It's not very fast, and which is like a couple of miles an hour, not even, okay? Higher speed elevators, we use roller guides because they're really fast and they're quieter. Okay, they're quieter, they give a better ride, but they're in controlled environments. The humidity is controlled, the temperature is controlled, everything, they're clean environments. And this is not a proper environment for roller guides to begin with.
These guide rails have been in there since the inception? Yes.
I believe so.
What's the cost differential between the two?
Between the roller guides and slide guides, $30 or something. It's not significant in the scheme of things.
What about elevator brakes? You don't need to replace the brakes with a different design?
No, the current brakes, they plan on reusing them, I think.
Okay.
I don't have the specification off the top of my head.
But you can use them with that?
Yeah, the brakes are a different part of the elevator. Mm-hmm. The only thing is in the specification that we originally were issued, somebody called for roller guides. And that would be okay, but when you walk into this environment, you have a lot of humidity, you have the gassing, the hydrogen sulfide.
Everything you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's too many moving parts on a roller.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have to be, they require more maintenance.
Right. How often do you have to grease the slides?
Well, we like to check them monthly, but the state says you only have to check them every quarter, but I would be greasing them every quarter on this job. You're going to require some maintenance. We can't make it maintenance free. Yeah.
Can I ask?
Yes.
What would a typical quarterly maintenance cost be for the quarterly inspection?
Well,
including the...
Yeah, on a project like this, so it depends on how much time you allow the man on the site to conduct his maintenance procedures. So,
not a problem.
Okay. I would be about $250 every visit to allow them enough time to, like an hour on site, to go through all the...
Well, we've been doing that regularly now, right?
We've been doing the quarterly. I wanted to ask the price, what the difference was compared to what we do with no maintenance, lubrication. And we basically pay about $150 a quarter, a little over $150 a quarter now.
Well, you'll have to get a proposal.
How much time do they spend?
You'll have to get a proposal. That's not the place to talk about that, Joe.
Probably an hour.
Let's move on beyond that. One question I have is the brackets, I believe, for the counterweight, what they were pulling off the wall of the elevator shaft. Am I wrong? They were corroded?
Corroded.
Are we replacing the brackets?
All the brackets, all the fasteners, there will be twice as many brackets, almost, as there are now. Okay, we're going to increase the number of brackets. That was the plan, because the rails will be the new rails will be shorter. We have to. You can't bring in the 16-foot rails.
All right.
So there'll be more brackets, and all the brackets and all the shells, all the anchors are going to be replaced if we did it.
All right, so we have a proposal from Mr. Lardner for a change order.
Yes.
And I don't know what your status is. It's not on our agenda tonight as an action item to
Do we
approve the change order. We don't have a recommendation before us from the engineer.
No. It's been kind of a quick-moving target. We just got a last email from the engineer, which was actually from you, forwarded to us, was yesterday.
Well, you're in the. Do you have to order anything? Are you in the process of? I mean, the whole job's on hold at this point.
I checked with my supplier that the material is available like within 5 or 6 days. We can pretty much have everything together. Once we get it, if we chose to coat it, we're going to coat it. It'll take 2 or 3 days to coat it. We're going to be back on the site inside of 2 weeks.
And Ted, correct me if I'm wrong, but on a change order, I think Dale can okay that, and we don't need to vote on that, do we?
Normally, this is pretty significant. I think this will probably have to come before the board, only because of the size of the amount that we're dealing with.
Okay.
But I think you probably, if this board is in agreement that we're going to go, we don't have another board meeting this month. So our first board meeting will be the second Tuesday of next month. So if you want this thing to move along with any expediency, because our meeting will be the day after our board meeting.
Right.
So I suggest that maybe if everybody's in agreement here, that we agree to move it forward to the board, have Miranda have the action item ready for the township board at our next meeting. That way, right after that, we can proceed, because the board doesn't meet again now until...
Well, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
And Ted, this was your business, not elevator business, but mechanical engineering. You were there for, several of us went to the wastewater plant and spent an hour there and looked at this a couple weeks ago. And you had some questions, I know. Are you satisfied direction we're going? We have a proposal. I mean, but I have a copy of the Lardner proposal.
My only comment on this would be when I looked at it, and my suggestion to you and to the engineer was to at least get a comparison price between utilizing what's there and replacing what's bad. Obviously, that didn't happen for the reasons you probably stated. But I think that number should be out there. I'm not going to make an issue of it. This is significant. This is a significant add to this project. I think just rail add is what, 39,000, as I saw?
Yes, something like that.
Significant. And that option, I'm sure it was reviewed, but it should have been reviewed with some information coming back to the board, in my opinion. I'm not a voting body here. I'm on the other side, but not on this side. But that's my only comments. Because I understand that the elevator people would recommend replacing them all. That's their business. I understand that.
But the state inspector also agreed with that.
I'm sure he did.
I spoke with him.
I'm sure he did, but he may have also agreed with replacing the bad parts and utilizing the good parts.
Well, I spoke with him after, when you brought that up, when you guys came out for the tour, I called Dick Militz is his name, and he would not recommend mixing old parts with bad parts. That was almost a quote.
May I speak?
Yeah, sure.
The rails are like $100 a section. There's maybe, and they rest on top of each other. Okay, so in order to get the top sections, we can't just leave the top sections suspended. We have to take them all down in order to replace the bottom sections. So, and the top sections are not in great shape either. I mean, they're not as corroded badly as the other ones.
I'm not disputing any of this.
But they mate also. So those gate rails are probably made by a company in the United States, Central Steel Specialties. You can't buy North American elevator guide rails anymore. The ones we have to buy come from Europe, and they might not mate.
You guys obviously aren't hearing what I'm saying. My suggestion was that we get a report and get the comments. And the only comments we got was we're replacing them all. Now, had what you just said been in the report and came forward, I totally agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the approach, it appears going forward that we're trying to drive Cadillacs and not Chevys. Well, maybe we can't drive a Chevy. And that's fine if that's the issue. I'm just trying to make an issue that something was asked and it wasn't completed, or at least it wasn't explained.
I apologize for that. To be honest with you, it wouldn't have occurred to me to attempt to try to save those sections of guide rails. It just, from my experience and all the time I worked in the trade, the idea wouldn't have never occurred to me that somebody, and I know you're a layman, but, and I respect that, and I respect you're an engineer. But from my perspective, the idea just never occurred.
All right.
To any of us.
Discussion's over, Bill.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Joe, I'm just wondering, what do you do when the elevators are down? Climb up and down a ladder?
No, there's stairs.
Okay, stairs. Okay. So it's really not an emergency.
No, it's a maintenance.
Sure.
It's really the
You need it. You need
equipment up and down.
You need it.
Yeah.
Well, how many flights of stairs to get down to, there are 3 basement sections underneath the wastewater plant.
There's 5 levels.
There's 5 levels below the ground level.
4 below.
4 below. And there are long staircases where different treatment processes are occurring, and the narrow staircase, so this has to be fixed. I had a question. When you actually, I was going to ask you about when you do the work. How do you get into the shaft? You stand on top of the elevator and move it at a certain time? Or?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. We won't get into that. Well, here's a thought I have. Later on our agenda, we're talking about taking bids for chip seal. It occurs to me that we're going to have a special meeting. We're opening bids June 3rd for the chip seal that we want to do. And before your meeting, which is June, do you recall?
Not sure.
Yeah, I think it's June 8th.
June 8th? I think the 3rd, I don't have my calendar. Is it the 3rd? Anybody have a calendar? The 3rd is a Tuesday, I believe.
And then it'd be the 10th would be the following Monday.
Yeah, June 3rd. Is it Tuesday?
Tuesday the 3rd, Tuesday the 10th.
It's a Tuesday?
The 3rd's Tuesday.
Yeah. So we were talking about trying to have the engineers open the bids, do the analysis, and have a special meeting, a brief one, to take up the chip seal bids on the 5th. And then it would make your packets for your next meeting. Why don't we get I'd like you to get something, just for the record, from the state inspector and our engineers, and we'll do a normal change order. And we appreciate you coming tonight. We will approve it that way because nobody's had a chance to see everything. I think we've asked our questions. But since we're going to have a special meeting anyway, it wouldn't hold you up at all. Because it's ultimately a change order this size. The township board has to, what's that?
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a process. I mean, we'd like to get it fixed as soon as possible, but we still have some processes we got to go through. So I'm not in disagreement at all with the proceeding. I mean, I think we need to. So and we need to do it right. So I appreciate you coming and explaining it to us. It is a big change order. And I think we'll defer this to a special meeting time, along with the chip seal bids.
So, Bill, if I understand, what we do is have a special meeting prior to the next board meeting.
And prior to the next township board meeting.
That's what I mean.
So,
Okay.
I mean, nothing like this can be approved without, a budget amendment and so forth. So,
Okay.
and we don't have it on our agenda for approval. So,
Do you have to order the slide rails, or do you have them in stock?
I would order I don't know that I have a full matching set in stock. I don't think so. And the guide rails come in standard lengths of 16 feet, and because the building's already installed, we can't get that length in. We have to order shorter guide rails. So our standard guide rails that we have in stock are 16 feet long.
Well, it may take that long to bring them over on a boat.
No, they're here. They're in stocking in the United States. I believe there's a ample stock in Indiana, I was told.
all right. Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate you being here. So,
Thank you.
Joe, is there anything on the lighting, or are you all set for now?
Lighting is, we got an electrical engineer coming out to determine the conduits and the boxes and that on the 22nd. We'll have more after that.
All right. Very good.
And that's it.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll move on. Item number 3, Manager.
Okay, Wayne County is hosting another hazardous, or household hazardous waste collection on Saturday, June 28th at the Henry Ford Community College, located at 5101 Evergreen Road in Dearborn from 8 to 2. At the same time, they'll also be having an electronics recycling event. If you have any questions, contact the Resource Recovery Coordinator at area code 734-326-3936.
Okay. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to item 10, discussion items. We had a meeting at the Albright's residence. Mr. and Mrs. Albright are here. They reside at the corner of Loma Court. What is it? Loma?
No, they live
They're actually on West River.
Loma Circle and West River.
Yeah.
Well, they actually front on West River. The second house to the south of Loma. And we looked at it with the county yesterday, and fittingly, as we were out there yesterday morning, it started to rain. But Mr. Albright was with us, and then we came back, and so the conclusion we reached is we're talking about maybe a cooperative venture between the county and the township. We don't know what that means yet. We looked at the seriousness of the problems. In fact, today in the rain, we looked at it again, and the water does rush at a rapid speed on both sides of Loma as it gets near West River. But then it runs, instead of running down to West River in a direct way, it runs across the lot south of Loma and towards their property. So you're welcome to come up to the podium, but the recommendation is going to be that we authorize the engineers to do the survey that's necessary to come up with a solution. And in fact, we've already told them to go ahead with it, to do the survey work, do an analysis, come up with a solution for the drainage. But I'll let you come and address the commission if you'd like. And by the way, at the last meeting, we said we wanted to have this scheduled within, I think, 10 days from the last meeting, and that didn't take place. And the county seems to be willing to cooperate now, so I'm not going to say anything about their schedule. Anyway, do you want to add anything new?
Not really, no. Just want to thank Brenda and you guys for, pursuing this and, doing it in an expeditious manner. And, hopefully we'll be able to move forward and get the properties on. So,
okay, here's the plan. The plan that I envision at this point is ask the engineers to do the survey work so that they know we can trace all the drains and trace all of the flow and the directions and come up with some ideas for a solution. Then we would meet with the county and discuss mutually what can be done. And as you know, we have some drain funds, and we told the county we'd be willing to cooperate with them if they're willing to cooperate with us. And those people there yesterday indicated that they would be, without making any commitments, of course. So the plan is that between now and the next meeting of ours, we'll get the data, have a meeting with the county, and meet with the Albrights, and then come back with you with some alternative solutions. And that'll be our June meeting, which is June 10th.
Okay. Thank you.
And you'll be informed before then what's going on.
Unlike the Kentucky Derby, when you deal with government, it's like the international snail race. But we'll get to it.
Okay, moving along. The next item under action items is a request for a motion to recommend to the Township Board to award the bid to RVP Construction, the lowest bidder, in the amount of $16,800 for drainage improvements, again, on affecting property at Loma Circle. But this is between the Hawthorne development and Loma Circle, where we had serious flooding a year ago. And you have all the information. There were actually 2 bids received and for this work. And what it mostly entails is an old drain that is between Hawthorne and Loma. The back of the properties, the north end of the property is from Loma. And the ditch, the swale that once was there is overgrown. It doesn't work any longer. It's silted in. Is to remove the brush that's there for quite a distance and reestablish the ditch and get it to move to the east. So that's basically the project.
Support.
Question.
There's a motion to move forward with the award of a contract. Is there support? I didn't make the motion.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Okay. You
Well, I mean,
started
I
to.
said there's a recommended motion. The chair could make the motion. In fact, I'll be happy to make the motion. And you support it?
I will support it.
Okay. Everybody's had a chance to read the report. Any discussion?
Yes. Quick question for you. There's such a huge difference between the two bids. Were both construction companies looking at the same set of facts, looking at the same, one's $16,800, the other's $49,475. I can see if there's $4,000 difference maybe, but triple?
Well, this kind of work, over the years, Ron, we've seen this kind of work have great variances.
Okay.
Because it's not your typical work. You got to cut the trees down, remove the stumps.
Okay.
And apparently Erie Construction's busier than RFP.
That's fine. That was just my only question. Thank you.
Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're going to proceed with the project. Now, this has to go to the Township Board in June, but we'll be moving forward with it. Okay? Okay. And then next, we have, I'm going to get your name wrong again, Joe Elsesser?
Yes.
And you're building a home on Park Lane near Bridge.
Correct, 18459 Park Lane. It's north of the bridge. We're building on the east side of the street.
Okay.
I have some handouts I'd like to give you so you can play along.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I come tonight hoping to, seeking a resolution to a problem that started a year ago when we started our build. It seems to have been stymied at the manager's level, the township manager's level. When we began the build, immediately we ran into, when we were digging the hole for the basement, we ran into what we thought was an old septic system. As it turns out, it's a drain, storm drain that facilitates the houses on the opposite side of Park Lane, so on the west side of the road. It starts in a culvert across from Park Lane, comes under Park Lane, runs directly through the center of our property, and came through the break wall. So originally, when we thought it was the old septic system, we thought, well, we're just gonna cap it off and not worry about it. It's something that's not being used. Well, as it turns out, that's not the case. So we approached Dale, my contractor Tony Chirko, and I approached Dale Riem regarding what our options were, what we could do, and that's when we learned of the drain program that's in place. And the idea was for us to approach the neighbors that used this drain to see if they're willing to participate in this program. Everybody was going to be happy. Everyone's taken a piece of this drain program. All is good, and we're going to finish it. Well, it was met with an incredible amount of resistance from the neighbors. They were not willing to participate, and it pretty much became my responsibility. We had a hole in the ground, and it was about to rain, and we're going to lose our basement, which was going to set our build back for however long. So obviously, I needed to get this thing done. We went back to Dale. And at that time, Dale agreed to give us $8,500 towards the program. The entire program, the entire sewer was going to cost $15,500. He said, I'm going to give you $8,500 through this program. You're responsible for $7,000 of it. And, okay, that's fine. Let's get this thing done. So I initially agreed to that. Also, he had said that the drain application was going to be forthcoming, but go ahead and proceed with this. So we did. our excavator, Jason at Pro Excavating, he changed his schedule around, put the drain in place. We actually rerouted it so that it wasn't going through the center of the house, obviously. And we ended up completing that in a very timely fashion. Well, it came time to pay Jason, and I was given an easement agreement that indemnified the township and put all the onus on me. And I'm like, I'm not going to sign this. Why would I sign this? I don't understand how this drain is my responsibility anyway. When we bought the property in the title search, there's no drain of record on this at all. There's nothing in any of the title work, any of the research that was done through any of the title companies, the deed or wherever that would show up. There's nothing at a county level or a township level. So it was then determined that it was a private drain. Okay, so everything still was well and good. I was still willing to accept this agreement, but I didn't want to sign the easement agreement. It didn't make any sense to me to accept responsibility for something that I had nothing to do with, number one, that I wasn't using, number two, and why would I be responsible for something that may happen as a result of something that's coming from across the street, and suddenly I'm caught up in the middle of a lawsuit because I have taken ownership of this through this easement agreement. So at that time, Dale asked me to go ahead and make up my own easement agreement. So I hired an attorney, made up my own easement agreement that was immediately shot down by the township's attorney. So now, this all started back in May of last year. So now here we are in May of this year. It's still a problem. I'm not going to take you through the exact timeline. It's just going to take too much time. I continuously tried to get a hold of Dale through emails, through phone calls. It did not work out that way. Ended up getting a hold of Thomas Orty, the township attorney, and everything was fine. It was moving forward, and then we still couldn't come to terms on this easement agreement. They wanted me to sign this easement agreement, and I couldn't do it. So I'm coming here tonight to appeal to this board to find out why this needs to take place in this fashion, number one, why I'm responsible for it. And number two, since all this time has passed, I've had a lot of time with my attorney. I've spent a couple $1,000s on this attorney, and he has said, you should fight for this. You have no responsibility in this. And he wants me to take it down that road. Well, I no longer am happy with the $8,500. I would like to get full settlement on the drain for the $15,500. So that's kind of where I'm at. I brought my contractor, and I see that Jason's here now too, if you guys would like to add anything to this.
Well, first, I could say, based on what you tell me, I sympathize with anybody in that predicament, but we're just volunteers. We're an advisory board to the Board of Trustees. I would think you're in the wrong place. That's my opinion. Dale is the township manager. We actually, in a sense, report to him.
So what he says
we don't really report to him, but now you've introduced the township attorney. We would certainly, before we could even consider anything, we'd have to go to the township attorney and talk and meet with Dale. So,
well, I would expect that. And in this packet is the whole year's worth of. It's a little snippet of the year's worth of emails that have gone back and forth in the agreements that we had. And to me, Dale's not holding up his end of the agreement. He didn't say, you're going to get $8,500 and you're going to sign an easement agreement that puts you at 100% responsibility. I wouldn't have done that.
Joe, this might be a learning experience in a lot of different ways. Mr. Schmidtke worked for the water department for like 42 years. He might know something about what you're addressing, and we can see by the dates that this has been going on for years. May 20th, 2013, May 16th,
right.
10th, or whatever. I don't know that he really knows something about this, a special drain situation, but he might. And he might know about past practices, and you probably haven't had the opportunity to get input from him, and I don't know if Les has any continuing thoughts in that regard. But he's a very good resource, and it's important, for me at least, to listen to him sometimes about his knowledge of actual facts. So I'm interested.
Well, I think that drain might have been put in when Bill Kraus developed Boyd.
It seems to service that subdivision.
Yes.
And who owned this property then?
Well, I think we're going to, certainly, you came before us. I don't know, we have two trustees that sit on our board, but I'd have to go and discuss this with Mr. Ream and Mr. Assorti before.
Well, I would appreciate that if you could.
I mean, I could commit to doing that, but that's about all at this point. Read your file.
I mean, I just sat here tonight, though, and I heard two instances where you're helping other people with their drainage issues. How is this any different?
Well, they came here to this board with a drainage problem, and we took it up to begin with. And you went to the township manager and the township attorney, and eventually ours works its way up to them. But I don't know, it's a little different. Certainly, you've come in here and made some statements about how you were treated and what transpired. We need to sit down with them, obviously, and investigate. So, but we don't have any, the proper board, and I don't want to just put this off, is the township board. They're the ultimate appellate situation. But since so much time has lapsed anyway, we'd be glad to talk to the township attorney and manager, and we could bring the issue back at our next meeting in some way.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Did Rains get involved in this project at all?
Yes, the Rains got involved and did it's in this packet. They did the engineering portion of it. They approved it. That was the other thing, is we did everything by the book. We had gone through and went through that entire process, and they did get involved.
So basically the drainage grant went through the drainage grant process, and the agreement in the grant was 85 to you, and you were going to pick up 85 or
7,000. The township was going to pick up 85.
Okay.
But the way this whole thing transpired, I mean, it happened within a week. There was not a lot of time to dally, because if we had gotten the rain, I was going to get all of that water from the Boyd sub into my basement.
Oh, I know.
So Rains was there. Dale made all sorts of things happen. Everything was great in the beginning, but then it was like, okay, now you got to sign this thing. And I just wasn't willing to do that.
Right, and I understand all that, but I think what's happening here, by bringing it in front of this commission as an after the fact, because there's been so much that's transpired, and township attorneys involved, this commission obviously is not going to be able to aid you at this point. The only aid or relief that you're going to get at this point is through the township board.
Understood.
Because once the attorneys get involved, it starts a whole new ballgame.
Oh, yeah.
And now I've heard you say that you're not satisfied with the 85. You want somebody to pay for it all. I see this going a lot farther than where we're at right now. And I understand your dilemma. Had you chosen just to, nobody knows what this is all about, would just block it up, you'd have probably messed up a whole lot of houses and a whole lot of properties. I understand that. And you're not the first one on the island that's had this problem, where we've had drains running right underneath houses.
Can I get their names and addresses?
In fact, there was one, I'm not even sure the residents, someplace along East River, where it was an older house, and there was a crack in the floor, and there was actually a sump pump in the crack in the floor pumping the water out to the yard, because there's so much water running through. When it rained, the basement would fill up with water. And that was one of these old drains that, where did it go? Nobody knows. Where did it come from? Nobody knows.
Well, I won't belabor this. I just tried to do the right thing in the beginning. Thought it was the right thing. We had an agreement.
Sure.
And I feel that I'm being wrong.
Well, you made us all aware of a problem that we didn't even know existed, number one, including, I don't know, Mr. Budney did, who was a trustee. I'm a trustee. So you've now brought two more gears into the loop. I don't know if that's good for you or
I need your addresses, too.
I don't know if that's good.
I'll send you a gift basket.
Could I have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Did Dale Ream happen to mention
Appreciate it.
if that money was to come out of the drainage fund?
Yes, I think it was, by his comment.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah, we have the grant program, and like I said, so I think Ted has spoken. I don't know if you want to say anything, Jim.
Just that, that we need to look into it. I mean,
I understand.
obviously,
Right. Yeah.
But this is not the right commission to be talking to, but the right people are aware of it now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Joe, you're going to have to go to the board meeting. Do you want these back?
I do, if you have no use for them.
Jim, you keep yours.
I'm keeping mine.
If you want to keep it, that's fine.
I want to keep mine.
Okay.
People that aren't in.
Joe, if you need it,
I can make more, so it's not a problem.
okay. You put a lot of work into it.
So we hear you. I'll discuss this with the trustees, and we'll try to meet the next 30 days, and
Okay.
or
Thanks for your time.
less, and see if we can't get down to the bottom a little more,
Very good. Thank you.
and get back with you.
Okay.
We have information, dissemination, organization, specificity. This is a very well done position, and I commend you on your synthesizing.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one thing I don't see here is, I guess we have your phone numbers here. I don't want you to repeat it on the. Will you make sure that?
Actually, you would have to dig through the email. It's in any of the emails is my phone number.
Right.
And the title bar at the bottom.
Whether it's in here someplace.
Yeah, so there's several kinds of stuff.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you for appearing before us.
All right. Thank you.
Would it be okay if I address the board minutes?
Sure, you're here. Sure. Please give your name and what street you live on, or?
My name is Tony Chirko. I live at 12715 Don Allen Drive in Carrollton Township.
Oh, okay.
I've been a builder for 30 years, and I can't tell you if I've ever encountered a customer like Mr. Alcesser, and you've seen in his work and all that. All I'm asking for the board is he's been put through quite a bit, and he represented himself the best he could. He doesn't feel, and I agree with him, that the township has been as forthright as they should have been. Mr. Kostick, you made a comment that he should not have come here now, he should have come here earlier, but he wasn't given that direction at the time, and he went to the appropriate people that he thought would help him, and he hasn't gotten that. So I'm asking you, on behalf of myself and everybody that has worked with Joe, that you cooperate the best that you can in giving him what he needs, and I think it's been fair on the part of Mr. Alcesser as well as ourselves. We're asking the same of everybody here that can give him a helping hand.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, matter of fact, I'm the one that suggested Joe comes to this commission. Joe lived next door to me for 6 months, and his wife happened to stop by in March or in April, and she was telling me about the problem, and I suggested that they come and get on our agenda. And Joe has done a wonderful job with this packet. So I hope we've started something rolling for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, unless I understand that, and but I didn't. That's not normal with the attorney involved and the township manager involved, and we're like I said, we're all volunteers, advisory. So I feel a bit of a dilemma, but we could still look into it. Okay. Thank you for being here, all of you. All right, we have a number of people in the audience. And Jack, you're here, I see, so it's good to see you. We're going to have a good discussion on roads, so I hope you'll participate. Are we ready to move on then? Approval of the 2014 road repair program. In your packet, when you got it, we didn't have the final cost estimates yet, and so tonight you have seen you have a copy of the road repairs that look something like this document. And what happened is if you turn to the second page of it, I was provided this. Was I the only one that was emailed to? It was emailed to everybody.
to everybody.
So last Friday or Monday, this was emailed to everybody? Monday?
Yep.
Which was yesterday.
Oh, that's right, I've got an email.
So when I looked at this list, number one, if you recall our discussions, and I have the minutes from our prior meetings at the end of the year, when we talked about doing the chip seal this year, we know that we raised $225,000 a year with our millage. You remember, everybody? Right. So what we talked about is, okay, if we did 4 miles of chip seal at $60,000 a mile on a trial basis, right away we know we're going to spend $240,000. Last year for repairs, township-wide, we spent close to $300,000. So we were using up what accumulated fund balance we had. When we talked about this year, we said, all right, well, let's try to spend not over $100,000 for repairs and still do the chip seal. Anybody recall that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And as far as the $100,000, we were going to then, if we needed to, borrow it from the drain fund to be paid back someday so that we could do some repairs. Originally, we weren't going to do any repairs besides the chip seal, but some of the roads have fallen apart in such bad, a couple of spots, that we just have to go make some repairs that we don't think the county will get to. So when I saw this list at $143,000 and I looked at it, we had asked staff, when we did our road tour, we drove most of the primary roads. We'd asked staff, if you see things in the neighborhoods that you think ought to be addressed, please add them to the list. And when I looked at this list, I thought, my gosh, it's way over $100,000. That's $143,000. And then I started looking in the second project down Berkshire. I thought, if you look at the quantity of 60 square yards at $31,000, that doesn't comport with the figures, larger figures even. I learned that was a transposition in a figure. But what I did is I decided this afternoon, I actually did a little program with Pam Frucci for cable television about our road repairs, the road conditions. And I spent a couple hours driving around looking at these projects. And my own opinion is that based on what we were talking about fixing, is we were talking about fixing really bad problems. Now, we could triple this list easily as you drive around. But when I drove, I'm going to go down the list. If you go to the front page with my notes, if you look at Berkshire, I didn't see anything that was any worse than, let's just judge it by LaSalle Court. Much better than LaSalle Court. No slabs that appeared to be settling in, caving in. And sure, there's one slab that's particularly, doesn't look pleasant, but do we need to replace it? I don't think so. And I crossed out Cadillac Circle. What we have there is the same as we have on Park Lane or some concrete roads in the north end of the community, where you have the concrete slabs coming together and you have an area about a foot square where all the joints come together. We got a pothole. We have a lot of those, a lot of potholes in the concrete roads where the four joints come together in the slab sections. So I don't think we need to tear up slabs there. HCL Jackson, this was to fix where HCL Jackson, the north segment of it, approaches Church. Well, we're going to talk about rebuilding Church Road in the future, and I don't see the need. It's no worse than it was last year. It's not caving in or anything. And then jumping down to Massai Court, there's two slabs there. It's in much better shape than LaSalle Court, and we're not doing anything on LaSalle Court. I drove O'Donnell twice. I didn't see anything that needed to be done there. The intersection at HCL Jackson looks bad. There's no pavement failing. There's only one little pothole, but it looks bad. It's old asphalt over concrete. It just doesn't look good. I don't think it needs to be repaired. And wood, a couple of slabs, I couldn't tell where the slabs were. So anyway, in my mind, I deleted some of those items based on what we were looking at, which we're looking at slabs that are really caving in, need to be fixed, where they can't be patched.
And that's Manchester.
And mostly on Manchester. And talking with the engineer today, Sohail, he said that he had to cut Manchester back. And he said if you could put any more money into Manchester, he would appreciate it. So I just rounded off some figures and threw them back into Manchester. Now, this totals up to $71,900. What I think we ought to do is approve $100,000. And my suggestion is that we do concrete slab replacement up to $80,000. And then we go in and do joint repairs for the additional $20,000. And here's what I talked to the engineers about. There's a process when the county goes in and they put cold patch in. You know, we know in the wintertime they have to do that because you don't have hot asphalt available. It doesn't last that long. But a lot of the concrete joint segments can be fixed and the deterioration slowed down or stopped or slowed down anyway. If we talk to the contractor that's going to do the chip seal, and some of these guys do this, where you bring in something called a tack coat. Before they spray, when they put asphalt over asphalt, they spray a tack coat over it. A tack coat, is anybody familiar with it? Les, you are, I know. Mm-hmm. It's really strong. When I was a young city manager in my earlier life, I was on a project and I walked through the tack coat, and when I walked into City Hall, it was just setting up, and I pulled, tiles came up on my shoes off the floor.
Was that your last day of work?
No. So it was kind of funny, but it just set up at that point. I walked into the police station, and as I walked through the building, I had two pieces of tile pulled right off the floor. So the idea is put the tack coat on, clean the chips out of it, the stone out of it that's loose, spray the tack coat, and then put hot asphalt down and tamp it down properly. And you'll have a fix on a lot of our roads, and I'm suggesting we do $20,000 of that. So we spend our $100,000 that way. So does everybody understand my thoughts? Mm-hmm. Now, this is just my look at it. I would have trusted that every one of you had driven around looking at all this stuff. So anyway, that's where I'm at with this. Questions?
Bill, is there anything on here about Playscape Drive?
Well, I think we should fix and I think we should, I didn't put it on there.
Because there's a couple spots that really deteriorated bad.
Yep, last year we replaced the slabs there, and what I think we should do, Les, is do what I just talked about, is go in and spray a tack coat, make a patch.
Well, what they did is they cut the seam out and they put all new concrete in there. Now that's held up really good, but there's a couple places beyond that on either end of it where they cut that seam out that should be cut out, and new concrete put in. It's not very much.
There's one hole near Macomb.
Right.
Well, out of the post office.
Down farther where their driveway comes out of the back, where the mail trucks come out, is another spot that's all crumbled.
I didn't go look at that. Yeah, so what I'm suggesting, Les, is right now we have $71,900. So there's basically $8,000 to do something else. We could look at Playscape if you think it's important. I know the kids drive their bikes here. People come out of the post office. We could go look at that. And then put $20,000 towards joint repairs on our concrete roads and see if we can get a price to do that from our chip seal contractor. Now, before we leave that topic, we're going to talk about chip seal next. I got a verbal tonight from our engineers that before we do the chip seal program, we've got to go in and do base repairs. So they went in and analyzed the base repairs and based on the volumes that we have and cleared through Wayne County's engineering today that they're not going to make us dig up full depth repairs for the asphalt, that we can go back down 3-4 inches, dig out what's there, and then do the patch that way instead of going down deeper. Then they're cooperating with us in that sense, that he estimates that we're going to need about $60,000 to do the base repairs before we do the chip seal. So we don't have that proposal in front of us yet either, but when the chip seal bids come in, we'll have that proposal bid, and I'd like to get a price to do this other work. So what I'm suggesting is we authorize the concrete pavement replacement program at $100,000, and that included in that, we'll get a price for up to $20,000 to do these joint repairs. Does everybody follow that? I don't want to be the only one talking about it.
No, it makes sense.
I was just going to say, yeah, we all went on, or a number of us went on the tour, but we just got this list in front of us this evening. So, I mean, it looks okay to me. I see where, I mean, it seems every year we do Manchester. We put a lot of money in Manchester. And not that it doesn't need it. But they certainly are getting a lot of the funds. It looks okay to me. I know some of these we looked at, some of them we didn't. I guess John and Lorinda looked at the ones we didn't. And we can't do them all, so let's do what we can.
I think Jim's right. What we're doing is we're like the boy that put his finger in the dike to stop the dike from flooding the town. I mean, that's really what we're doing, because we don't have enough money. And Manchester has been taken care of before, but they have 3 different places on Manchester, probably almost the worst ones on the island. And once they're done, then they're done for a while. And we can't make everything right at one time. We just can't. And the county really pretty much blinks sometimes as opposed to paving. So, and that's partly due to funding and money. So I think this is a good start, because there is no place to really start, because it's the dike, the finger in the dike, and that's what we're doing.
Well, trying to put this in perspective, these repairs that you're talking about doing need to be done before the chip sealing is done. We're looking at doing the chip sealing this summer, which means, like I'm always saying this, but it seems like we're on a rather tight timeline again, because we need to give formal approval to this, or how does this work?
Well, what I'd like you to do is, for the concrete proposal, to give formal approval, and we can get started, because the contractor from last year, we already agreed that we would accept his prices for this year. So the concrete repairs can get started then. Lorinda can authorize that. It's been in the budget. I think that can go forward. And if that answers part of your question, Ron, as far as the base repairs with the chip seal, we're going to take proposals on that. At the time we award the chip seal, we're going to award the base repairs at the same time.
Okay.
Which would be at a special meeting like June 5th. And have proposals on that, and I'd also get a proposal from the chip seal contractors to see if they can do, and I know at least 2 of them can, what I'm talking about with this tack code and the proper repair, and see how far 20,000 goes. We'll get a price per hole, let's say, to fix it. They're all similarly sized, and see how far we can go. Now, there's no way we could have gone, based on not having approval from the county, to do the chip seal, and we still don't have the letter, even though they've told us we'd have it 3 weeks ago. But I talked to them again today, and they said we'll have it next week for sure. It's just a letter of approval saying you can do chip seal. Every county in Michigan uses the process to where you have a fairly decent asphalt road to chip seal asphalt roads. And what it is, it's a slurry seal that goes over the road with a chip that's cut, little stone chips that are like slices, like almond slices. They're not round, they're mostly flat. And then after they put the slurry down for a mile, let's say, of road, they come along with the chip seal and a spreader in a truck, and they spread the chips. They come back and roll it, and it sets up by the end of the day. You can drive over it 2 hours after it's laid, but it takes all night, 24 hours for it to really set up good. And then what we were talking about is a spec we got from MDOT to do a double chip seal. We had a contractor come out and look last fall. We went to Monroe County and saw their whole operation last year, saw roads with much more traffic than we have. And the road segments we're talking about here, since we have an audience, there's 2 sections on East River. One is between Grow and Manchester, chip seal that, and there's some spots there that need to have base repair. Another section is from South Point by the canal to Grow and down Grow to Meridian, past the township office. Another section is Horse Mill between Meridian and East River, or Park Lane by the Presbyterian Church. And another section is from Macomb on East River to Ferry, past the junior high school, where there's a lot of traffic. Those asphalt segments are not bad right now, but they're deteriorating. And the hope is we can fill all the voids and the cracks, provide a better surface for riding purposes, and we're doing it on an experimental basis. If it's successful, chip seal, we estimate, is going to cost about $60,000 a mile to do the double chip seal versus $400,000 to $500,000 a mile to rebuild the road, resurface it for a mile. So that's what we're talking about, Jack. And if we're successful with this program, then we're talking about a much broader program where we could do 15 miles of chip seal if we get a bond issue approved and rebuild some other roads, which is the next topic we're going to discuss after this. So we came up with this idea. We've looked at Lenawee County and Monroe County now as far as chip seal. Again, contractors tell us to do it. There's only 3 in the state that I'm aware of right now, but maybe less you get some information.
Mr. Chairman, I have a notice to bidders from the Crawford County Avalanche. In Crawford County, the County Road Commission is going out for bids for chip seal and also for dust control. I thought maybe you might want to contact those people and see how they're doing it, and maybe they can even tell you what the cost is that they're bid.
Right. Okay, we will. Thank you, Les. And I was in Lenawee County last week, met with their road commission, not on this subject, but I asked them about their chip sealing, and they bid out some chip sealing too, but they do it themselves too. So what we learned is you have to do it in July or August. Maybe I already said that. So the nights don't get real cold. If they get cold, they want to have fairly warm nights for it to set up properly and harden. And so most of the counties, at least that have some population, I don't know about the real rural counties, but they seem to be able to do it themselves. And then in Monroe County's case, I think they said they do 70, 80 miles a year.
Yeah, 82 miles, they said.
They were willing to come out and do Ferry for us last year, and it was such a wet year that they got behind in their work and they never did it. So we've given up on Monroe County. They were going to do experimental basis for us. And now Ferry has deteriorated to the point where the alligator segments in the road, Jack, have separated so much. We have so much loose stone now in the asphalt that it's not a candidate any longer, according to all the engineers, including the county, for that treatment. So anyway, we're trying to see what we can do to improve our roads.
Bill, does the math still work on this? We got in your stuff here about 4 3/4 miles at $60,000 a mile, plus the other base repairs you're talking about 60,000.
Yeah. Well, I also played around with this and talked to Sohail again about this. You know, we somehow, let's go to page 38 in your packet. Everybody there?
Yep.
I remember we tried to get as much, as we took our annual road tour together, we talked about doing Horse Mill and the 2 segments of East River and South Point to grow. And then, if you recall, we did talk about maybe doing Bridge from Meridian to Park Lane. Mm-hmm. And then backed off of that, and somebody suggested, well, maybe we should do Park Lane from the Presbyterian Church to the North Point, to the point of the island. And that is, it's way over a mile in length. and it's closer to 2 miles. And that really is going to throw the costs high. We're going to be way over our budget on chip seal, so I recommend that we drop any consideration of Park Lane. Just stick with the 5 listed. And actually, 4 and 5 are really one project. And that gets us down to under 4 miles, considerably under 4. It's 3.17 miles. And that may reduce, Ron, that probably will reduce some of our base repairs.
All right.
So how do you feel about that? I mean, I think we got to be realistic. We got, at the price of $60,000 a mile, plus the base repairs, I think we better try to keep it below 4 miles if we can, to be realistic. It gives us 4 different road segments to experiment with.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that we hopefully get the project or the test out there so that the people can see, so that we can see, what this chip seal is. I mean, we're of course very high on it, I think, from everything we've seen so far, but we need to get it down and let the people see it.
Okay, so these are really action items. If we back up, can we have a motion to approve $100,000 for concrete repairs?
I'll make that a motion.
Support. Okay, support.
Okay, based on the marked up list of the report.
And amended 51314.
There you go. Is there further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. On the chip seal issue, what we've been asked to do is just approve the final schedule here, and we'll set a date for, the staff will call, or the chair will call a meeting for June 5th, and try to get a quorum together. We're taking bids June 3rd, and gives the engineers a day to analyze the bids. So with that in mind, and eliminating Park Lane from the chip seal program, horse mill to the point. Can I have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve the chip seal program.
Support.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, can by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we have those 2 items taken care of. Thank you. Now the really big one.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Costick.
Yes.
Prior to the end of the meeting, why don't you just schedule your next month's meeting for that date rather than call it a special meeting, so we don't have to have 2 meetings next month.
That's a brilliant idea.
I wouldn't go that far.
All right. Does anybody think they can't make a meeting on the 5th? All right.
I'd say let's go with that and let people check their schedule, and if they can't, then we'll go from there.
That is a Thursday, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah. So let me ask a question. One of the issues is,
Bill, did you want the 5th or the 3rd?
well, we're opening bids on the 3rd,
Okay.
so the 5th.
Okay.
They need some time to evaluate the bids. How about everybody? Okay. So we'll try to meet that night, I guess. All right. Good suggestion. So we'll see if we can set it up and work it out. All right. Okay. The last item on our regular agenda is approval of long-term road and capital improvement program for water main. I wish that Jack Delphi would get a copy of this. Jack, I'm going to call you and meet with you separate to go over it. But what I want you to do, Jack, is maybe John or somebody can come up to the podium and look at this map and can we put it on the screen? Dorinda?
Really hard to see.
Do you know how to work that, John?
No, I'll figure it out. Maybe I won't find it on the screen.
Very good. Can you see that, Jack? Yep. All right. All right. Everybody in the audience can see it. All right. So we've been working on this a long time, and I have to tell you, gang, I'm a broken record. I feel bad. And it really makes me sick to drive around this island and look at the condition of our roads. And there's nothing we can do about it because it just takes a ton of money. So I sent you all an email today. I don't know if anybody saw it. It's just some agonizing thoughts I had. So I'm going to start with that. We have a program here that is basically going to talk about raising $9 million for roads. And with that, we'd leverage county money, federal money, for East River and Meridian on top of that, and $9 million worth of water main replacement. So we're talking about $18 million. And the question is, are we crazy? You know, we've been talking about this for a long time, but that's a lot of money. It's expensive. So, you know, before we start, I just want to speak to the issue. Why would we consider this expensive a program? And this is not just, we've been talking about this for a year. We've been building on it. Well, grosso, it'll affect our quality of life. The roads really affect our quality of life. Safety and health, we have a ton of water mains. The first quarter of this year, we averaged one water main break every 3 days with our 70-year-old water system. And the fire chief came in and said to us this February, you need to fix water mains, replace the water mains with a 12-inch on East River and on West River, if you remember that. So we got safety and health as an issue. We got the attractiveness and appearance of our community. And it's going to affect property values someday because so many roads are so bad. Our community image is affected by it. Investment we make in our homes is affected by it. The economic vitality of the whole island, investment we all make, what we do here, and improving our future. And we could say for our children, whatever, but just improving our future in general. The last election, the city of Riverview approved 3 mills for roads. I can tell you several communities are looking at something like that. So I feel it's the right thing to do. And I think you all know that. So since our last discussion on this, I sat down with Sohail again and went through the figures. So let's walk through them right now. And Dorinda, maybe you could go up to the map and just point as we go through each project. We started out as a church road committee. And Jack, you started that years ago. Well, now we're talking about widening Church Road 2 feet on each side to 24 inches. 24 feet, 2 12-foot lanes. She lost the TV thing here.
Just on no, here. I don't know. Just a no input signal and it went away.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to bring it up, but now we've talked about Church Road. You know, Church Road is where we have access to Park Lane Elementary School, and of course we do have the Catholic Church, which is I think the biggest church on the island, but Church Road is gone. It needs to be reconstructed. And so the cost estimate to do that now without cutting any trees down, Jack, is $1,400,000. And plus, now we've decided we need to in order to widen it the way we want to close those ditches and put storm drains in. And of course, we got to replace the water main before we do it. So we're talking about basically almost $2 million for Church Road. Also, Ferry, second on the list, we were going to chip seal it, but it's so far gone now and alligator. We'd like to widen it to 22 feet from the canal to East River, and the cost of that estimate is $1,200,000. Item 3, Wayne County has proposed a project on their list of projects for almost 2 miles between Parkway and Church to resurface it. It's 70. Last year it was 74th on their list, and each year they do about 12 projects, 14 projects. But we're talking about maybe going forward with a bond issue in 2015 to the voters. And so in order to get that moving, we'd have to budget the local match. So we budgeted $300,000 for that. That would be about close to $1.5 million, $3,500,000. We budgeted $300,000 as the part of the match for that, with the hope that all the cities are putting up the match to match the county money. The county doesn't have any money. Item 4 is the continuation of paving Meridian, and I don't know when that would happen, all the way to Bridge. We budgeted the match for that, assuming that, Meridian is eligible for federal funding at 80%. And that's every year the county gets $15 million a year of federal money to do resurfacing projects. And with that, you have to match 20%. And then likewise, number 5 on the list is East River, to resurface East River from Horse Mill to Manchester, 3 miles. Figured at $1 million a mile, and that may be conservative on the high side, but we budgeted $600,000 for the match for that. And then we're proposing, if we're successful with the bond issue, included in it would be item number 6, that we would chip seal, you see all the green on that map, we would chip seal 15 miles of asphalt roads twice in a 10-year period. At a total cost, $60,000 a mile of $1,800,000. Now, number 7, I added, since the last time you saw this list. If you drive Grays Drive in front of the high school right now, if we're talking about a 10 or 12-year program, we got a lot of slabs on Grays Drive there in rough shape. Talking with Sohail about it, I thought Grays Drive and Island Wide, let's budget $800,000. I mean, I threw the figure in. It doesn't have to stay in there. It's just a wild guess, but over a 10-year period, let's budget $800,000 for slab replacements throughout the community. And then lastly, West River Road. We thought if we're going to have a 10-year, 12-year program for roads, in addition to our normal maintenance money, that we just can't ignore West River. Now, originally, we'd come up and said, well, if we're going to fix the drainage problem on West River and resurface it, probably could cost $800,000 a mile for 3 miles. I've got a change of thinking on that, and the thinking is we should reduce that to maybe $1.8 million and put the additional money into East River, and I'll tell you why. The advice we've gotten is that if you want East River to go, and it's in really bad shape, you probably ought to say we're going to match more than 20%. We might say we'll match 30 or 40%. So what I'm suggesting there is we drop East River to $1.8 million and take that other $600,000 and throw it up into East River, make that $1.2 million. And I guess think about that. How many vehicles are on East River versus West River? So it doesn't change the totals at all. But I'm suggesting that number 5 be budgeted at $1,200,000 and West River at $1,008,000. That totals $9,100,000, or bond payments, and this is figured at 10 or 12 years for those roads, at 5%. So that's a little conservative. It's $982,000 a year, or about $1.5 million. The second page of the program is all water main. We've got Church Road at $1 million, East River at $1.5 million, and we once took bids on that, so we know that's a pretty good figure. The Meridian Road water main at $4.5 million. That goes all the way from near Bridge all the way up to Grow, and a couple of streets like Balmoral and whatnot off of it. And then West River at $2 million, so that's $9 million worth of water main over 25 years. So that's $640,000. So if you add the 3 together, all the water main and the road improvements we're talking about an $18 million program. It's almost equivalent to the $3 million package. This is a tough thing to take, but things have deteriorated pretty bad. Our roads are in pretty bad shape. And I don't know if the county's going to get any relief, increased gas tax money. It doesn't seem plausible, but anyway, that's the way the program lays out right now. My recommendation would be is that we approve it, and we make arrangements with the help of Ted and Jim Budney, to make arrangements to have a study session to present this with to the township board and see how they react to it, and put much more than this together. We make it a nice report. And because once we get that, we're going to have to go to the county and see whether the county will cooperate with us. Will they let us do on Church what we want to do, and on Ferry what we want to do, and on West River what we want to do? Because on West River, we're not going to widen it. We're going to rebuild it in place. Just grind it up and put a nice pavement back down and try to solve the drainage problem. Now, I'm open to any of your suggestions, comments, or changes if you want to make them. I know we've talked about this a lot.
So, Bill, this would be for something to be in the 2015 ballot?
That's something we'll have to, yes, that's my thinking at this point, and something we'd have to talk to the township board about. But I'm going to guess to get the county's cooperation, it's going to take us 4, 5, 6 months. And I'm not sure we're going to proceed if they aren't going to cooperate.
Well, I think we have to do something. We can't, we can't continue to just let our roads deteriorate. I've said over and over to homeowners and other people, either we do something or you can go, bang your head against the wall talking to Wayne County. If you expect them to do it, it's not going to happen. So what do you want? It's a bitter pill to accept, but it's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse. It's going to get to the point where, if we wait too long, chip sealing might be out of the question. It just might not be, any of our roads, or very, fewer and fewer miles of our roads may be eligible for it, and it will be to the point where we have to reconstruct everything. And you can see the difference in the cost is amazing. This is what's proposed here covers the whole island. From north to south, east to west. Whether we ultimately end up doing everything here, only time will tell. But I think it's a decent plan as a starting point.
Well, one thing, a comment I would make is the roads are obviously the glamour thing that catches you because everybody drives on them and complains about them and everything else. The water mains, that is probably even more important than the roads, isn't it, Phil?
Well, sure, they're both, yeah. Well, they're both important, yeah.
I know, but I mean, aren't we under some kind of mandates or something regarding our...
Well, I think, I don't know, Ron, if the state would come down on us, because we don't have low water pressures at this point.
Okay.
And even from a fire flow standpoint, I think we've had adequate pressures. We did get that water report 2 years ago. We'll have to revisit some of that, but these recommendations on these projects are all from that report. John could probably answer that. I mean, do we have a lot of low pressure areas?
No, sir.
The biggest problem we the biggest problem we have is, like West River, when you dig up a water main to fix it, it's an old 6-inch pipe, and it's only got about 3 inches left in it because the calcium buildup on the inside of the pipe has restricted the flow. Same as East River. And so we have samples of that down in the DPS office. So that's the biggest problem. But we need to fix the mains. So, any other comments at this point? The Detroit News, editorial Sunday, the Free Press editorial says, get the show on the road. And they were very critical of the state legislature for not dealing with raising money. There's a lot of excuses going around in Lansing. The interesting thing about the article, they said after they criticized the legislature, they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Michigan roads and bridges are disintegrating under its residents' tires. The threat to motorist safety is palpable, and the state's typical vehicle owners paying hundreds of dollars a year in repair costs, attributed to poorly maintained pavement. Lawmakers claim to be looking out for their constituents' pocketbooks by deferring overdue repairs aren't fooling anyone. Motorists know Lansing's frugality is costing them through the nose. And then there's a Center for Michigan in Lansing, and they're a group that attaches themselves to civic affairs. And they said they had 166 meetings across the state in nonpartisan format, and found that 7 out of 10 Michiganders ranked increased investment in roads as among their top priority, and that 58% of those polled said they would be willing to pay higher taxes for better roads. So this is Sunday's paper. So I know that a lot of communities are, and every day I go to Livonia in Wayne County, and I try different routes to avoid all the bumps, and whether it's Middle Belt or King Road or Allen Road or any of the roads. Look at Jefferson. Now, one thing we've learned is that Jefferson from the bridge, the county bridge, or Van Horn to Trenton, they're supposed to do that next year. They're supposed to engineer it this year and pave it next year. Hopefully they will. But that's been an ongoing issue with Trenton, to get them to put the money up to do their share. So anyway, it's a problem, and I know I'm a pain in the butt about it. So anyway, so I'm suggesting we unless you have a better idea, we adopt this for now, take it and set up a meeting with the Township Board of Trustees, working with Ted and Jim, and see when we can get that next step done.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
One comment I've noticed in driving through the county, they've improved just the intersections at quite a few intersections along Van Horn and also Sibley. Yep. And there's quite a bit of benefit of that. And I'm just wondering, do we want to have a section in our bond proposal where, as well as the chip sealing and the resurfacing, where we would also have a section that would just be intersection repairs?
Well, we could if you...
I just noticed they did that coming off of South Point onto Swan Island, and it just improved that whole road significantly. They did that several years ago, but it was just a small section, 20 feet into the intersection off of the T. They did that, I know, on Sibley, at, I think, Inkster, and some of the other crossroads, Beach Daly. And it really would seem to improve the major deterioration points of those roads. And I mean, I'm not saying do that in lieu of any of this, but just maybe have a section where we would identify areas where just intersection improvements would also help.
I'm open to that, Phil. And
that's the only thing I could add.
I suppose on what I numbered, item number 7, I threw in the concrete road. You could call that intersections and concrete road repairs.
Correct.
Would that work for you?
That would work. And I don't know whether... I always like to ask for more money and accept less. Don't know whether we want to bump that up at all or not, but I totally agree it's an important program. It's definitely way, way, way beyond needing to be done.
We did some intersections a few years back.
Yes.
They grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Church.
We did a number
Correct.
of them, but no, I think you make a good point, and I think we got to be careful how we talk about this too, because we're going to say this is our proposal and what we hope to accomplish over a 4-year period. And if you notice at the top, it says if we go to the voters sometime in 2015, that the program would actually see the work being done between 2016 and 2019. Obviously not going to do all this in a year.
Correct.
And we're not going to get commitments from the, I don't see the county doing more than a mile or two. If we get federal aid on some of these East River and Meridian sections, I don't see that happening all at once. So.
Well, I think, just to comment, I think the breakdown of the expenditures on this project need to be had with the township board. And we have to decide how much we would expect. I mean, if we're going to take the burden off of Wayne County for $9 or $10 million worth of roads, we would obviously expect something in return.
Yep.
And I would think that, and it's all going to be economically based with Wayne County. I don't know if they're going to get in any better shape. I don't see it coming. But we need to at least go into this argument with some kind of expectation that they will give us something in return for these dollars.
I agree.
And I'm not sure they'll be able to give us what we want, but I think that has to be a driving force in this negotiation, because we have to sell this to the public.
Yep. I agree.
And everybody knows they're Wayne County roads, and everybody knows that if we put $9 million or $10 million into these roads, we're taking that burden off Wayne County and accepting it ourselves. And I would have some expectation of something in return from Wayne County.
I think you make a great point, and I agree with you. The only counter I would have to that is, if we wait for Wayne County, in our lifetimes, for this group sitting here, we're not going to see it happen.
Well, you're probably correct, especially in my lifetime, but moving forward...
Well, we're the same. But, we're competing with Ford Road, we're competing with Warren.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is, if we don't go in with that expectation, if we just bail them out, I mean, if it's something as simple as other services, I think the negotiation portion of this needs to be huge going in. And if we don't do that, if we're just going to accept it, it's my concern that the voters won't vote for it.
All right.
That's my concern.
It's a legitimate concern.
Well, that's what we did back in the early 70s when we had a millage issue to do the roads, because it was called Pothole City. And the post office refused to even deliver mail anymore, and they went out and we got a bond issue, and we did all the roads on Grosse Ile. Macomb Street, well, it isn't like we did it is as it is now. We had East River, West River, Ferry, Church, Bellevue. We did all of those roads in the county. After the citizens paid for it to have it done, the county's supposed to maintain them. Well, they haven't done a very good job.
You're right. Haven't done anything. Okay, well, Phil had a suggestion. We added the intersections and concrete road repairs. Anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the long-term road and water main capital program.
Support.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
One question, does the motion include moving the $800,000 from West River up to East River?
That's a good point. No, wait, it was 600,000.
600,000, excuse me.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes.
I think it's a conceptual document.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Before we have the meeting with the township board, it's probably going to be adjusted.
Right.
So we'll put this in a nice report format, and I'll work on that. Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So thank you very much. The motion passed. Jack, I'm going to get you a copy of this program. In fact, I'd like to sit down with you and go through the whole thing. Okay. With that, I'm done. Find the agenda.
Before you ask us
okay.
our 2 cents, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Bill for all that he's done. He never wants anybody to thank him, but that's a yeoman's work that you did to prepare all that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Okay, the chairman has no further report tonight, so we'll move on. Commissioners' reports.
Mr. Chair, public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Come before you.
Okay, public comment. Is there any public who wishes to speak? Jack? We always like to hear from you.
Now, wait a minute. Don't go too far.
All right, thank you. So with that, Les.
I've had quite a few calls about that problem we have by the fire department of the lake that's back in there, that is a massive breeding ground for mosquitoes. And when they did that project and put that ditch in, it was never final inspected, and what the contractor did was supposed to haul the dirt out. He never hauled it out. He bulldozed the dirt from the west to the east, and he created a berm in there. And the berm has created that lake in there. All the trees are dying because they've been in water for 5 or 6 years now, 7 years. And all it takes is digging one small trench to relieve that backup of water that's in there and eliminate the mosquito breeding ground. In summertime, you can't even walk down the road without getting attacked. And it's not going to cost much to do it, to go in there with a backhoe and dig a small trench and open this up so it can drain and put the land back the way it laid before. My kids grew up playing in those woods, and there was never a lake in there.
Les, is this open space?
Yes.
It's open space.
Yes, if you go down and you park right by the end of Dallas Drive and look out there and see the mess that has created in there, you would not believe it. It needs to be opened up and drained because it's unhealthy.
We'll get that message to the open space people, because it'd be up to them to take care of it.
No, it was done by us.
When you say by us,
It was done by the township because they paid to put that trench in from the fire station over to Grosse Hill Parkway. The open space had nothing to do with it.
Well, we do have drain funds, so I'm not opposed to investigating it.
We'll investigate.
It would take a backhoe to go in there about a half an hour, and it would be over and done with.
All right.
Everybody says that there's wetlands in there. No, it's not a lake.
They're wetlands now.
Hey, don't ask the DNR, right? All right, well, so we'll follow up with Les on that. And I'm not opposed if we can solve a problem.
Yeah, the other thing, a couple people have asked me about the dust bond. When is that going to start?
Lorinda, the question is, do you have any idea when we're going to do it? I think part of it's going to be driven by weather, Les. When things dry out, we're going to do it.
Yeah, and the county schedule too.
Because they have to...
They always come by and they grade the roads first.
Well, they already did.
They already did.
Well, they still need to make some repairs, don't they? Yeah.
Well, as long as it's raining, let's hold off on the dust. Okay. Anything else, Les?
No, that's it.
Bill?
No comment.
John?
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Ron?
Nothing further.
Jim?
Done.
Ted? Nothing? Staff? John? Lorinda? With that, we'll look at canceling our June 10th meeting and changing it to June 5th, if we can work that out. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion we adjourn the meeting.
Support.
Moved and supported, we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.